the decision made by the Albanese government to cut the funding for this program is significant in three areas, which I'll address. Firstly, the substantive impact on Australia's space industry. Secondly, the secondary impacts for areas such as defence. And then thirdly, the diplomatic impact of the decision made without transparency that has affected not only Australia, not only our defence capabilities, but also our allies. To the substantive effect, the $1.2 billion National Space Mission for Earth Observation was an important program. The reason it was supported by the former coalition government was that we saw the benefit of having a sovereign satellite capability that would stretch over the next 2 decades. Defence, the CSIRO, the Bureau of Meteorology, saw the benefits in terms of security, particularly maritime security, weather observation, climate change, water quality assessment and environmental monitoring, and as well as looking at things like disaster preparation. Importantly, what it meant was that Australia would have the funding and the investment in our own industry to be able to design and build 4 satellites so that we would have that ability not only to design the satellite payload, the satellite bus, the launch vehicle and the launch system, but we would have the ability to tie all that together, launch and operate these satellites. Now, that would not only serve those domestic purposes, but what it would mean is that we would not just be a free rider in the world of satellites and strategic data services, but we would be a contributor to our own uses, but also to those of allies, including the United States. And so by cutting this program, this is built upon a pattern of behaviour by the Albanese government. And in March I spoke about the fact that in their National Reconstruction Bill, the fund, space was one of the areas they overlooked. In contrast to the Coalition, who in our national manufacturing priorities made space one of the primary areas, and we invested in a whole range of areas, such as international space investment, the Space Infrastructure Fund, the Moon to Mars mission, as well as Australia's first national space mission. And industry, for example, the CEO of the space industry, James Brown, has said that the National Space Mission for Earth Observation was the most strategic and significant space public policy in 40 years. ASPI, Malcolm Davis, has highlighted that this decision is political, it's a short-term money grab, and it ignores the long-term benefits to both the economy and to defence and to our national interest. The remarks attributed to the Minister's office say there's nothing to see here, and to quote, they say, but there were no commercial contracts entered into, end quote. But importantly, and this is emblematic of what it means for the space industry, the CEO of the space industry has highlighted that as a result of this cancellation, investments that were planned for Australia's space sector are already being cancelled. So there will be no more commercial arrangements entered into if this is the way the Albanese government proceeds. To defence, we see in the media just recently that a number of nations are creating capabilities to disable satellites, which means in a conflict where we may need our own industry to be able to launch satellites with both ISR or communications packages, we will no longer have the pathway to enable them to do that in a timely manner because this program has been cut. And lastly, in the diplomatic side, by not being transparent with the US, but importantly, by cutting this program, we've actually severed a relationship with one of our strategic partners. And I notice in the speaking points, or the key messages that were only uncovered through Freedom of Information, that key message 23 subpara C from the Albanese government said, "We appreciate this likely poses challenges for Congress on appropriations and complicates your planning." Well, the Congress at this exact moment is debating whether or not they pass legislation to support Australia with things like the AUKUS agreement. Given how important AUKUS is, memo to Prime Minister Albanese, you and your decisions are not helping.
Thank you, Senator Fawcett.